Good morning. Can you hear in the back? Okay, good. I hope you had a nice, quiet evening. Yesterday was lovely together, so thank you. Let's just sit for 10 minutes and let go of all our scattered thoughts, following the breath as best you can. Checking in with the body. What mood is it in this morning? Whatever you meet it with kindness and a soft, open heart. And now we can relax all the stories. Just let them flow by. Relax our minds, relax our emotions. Everything is welcome, and there's no need to hold on to anything. So we'll just do this for 10 minutes. When you notice you're distracted, which is pretty much inevitable for most of us at this level, then just see that, be happy you noticed it, and come back to your breath. So it's good to get more familiar, more clear about the condition of our bodies, the way our mind functions. So often in this world, we aren't conscious of that. Our focus is outward. Buddhists are called inward-focused beings. Every practice of the path turns us, what we would say, inward. Because if we don't know our own minds and bodies, well, no need to say anything about that. Then we don't even know who we are, where we are, what we're doing. And we may not even keep basic ethics, basic kindness, when we lose track of that. So this quiet sitting is so important, very useful. And now let's take a moment in this quiet to expand our minds, to think about each moment that we experience is just a moment, can't even be found. What's the beginning, middle, and end of a moment? Can't find it when you look closely. Yet it's occurring in some way. But in Buddhism, we open to beginningless time. Can't find the first moment in the entire so-called time labeled. Can't find the last moment. Beginningless and endless. Vast. And then we can think too of the limitless number of beings coming into forms, going out of forms, ourselves changing form. Even you just look at this life. How many forms have you had? Once a little tiny fetus inside your mother's womb. Hard to believe, but true. And a little baby, newborn, toddler. You had a form in elementary school. All those forms are completely gone. And high school. And whatever you did as a young adult. And now you look at your form different, changing every day. This is due to the impermanence. Oh, no problem, except when we forget. So this is true for all beings, vast numbers, coming, going. And ourselves like that. So we expand our thought to include all of them, so that we will be here today together, happily, and maybe sometimes not so happily, which is fine. But be here to end suffering. Be here to see really deeply into our conditions, into the conditions of others. To be here and do these practices so this suffering can end, so that we can have the happiness that's rightfully ours as Buddhas, welcome back, and welcome those who were not here yesterday. I think only a couple. Who was not here yesterday? Just hands up. Okay, good. Welcome. Welcome, streamers. Happy you can be with us wherever you are. And I think everyone in here knows, but my name is Zopa. This is Bill and Dora. We're all associate teachers here at KCC. And this is a Tonglen retreat. So if you got on the wrong bus, it's time to get off. As they say, this is your moment to run out the door. So I'll say what our plan is, and then we'll hold it lightly. We thought we might start with a little time for Q&A. Most of you were here yesterday from 9 to 3. Then you were encouraged to carry the quiet and the sense of whatever you learned through the evening. So perhaps you have some questions. So we'll set some time for that. Bill and I will do some review of the many pieces of putting together the basic foundation for a successful Tonglen practice, for a deep, nourishing Tonglen practice. So we will do that. Then we'll do some Tonglen practice. And of course we'll have breaks and we'll have lunch right around 12 to 1. Really important. People did this so well yesterday, and I'm so grateful. We're all so grateful. I'm sure you're grateful to each other about holding the silence. It is exceedingly precious. And because of that, we won't do other activities at lunch, or it's more important to hold the silence. It's quite difficult to get silence. In fact, we won't get it already. You can hear sounds. But at least we will strive to not speak to one another unless it's absolutely necessary, because you need to. So then do that quietly. So before we open it to a question, and I hope you have one. Questions mean you're engaging at your own level. Doesn't mean you have to have a question, but otherwise it can kind of turn into, Lama Michael uses this word, and I was surprised the first time I heard it, entertainment. You know, we're up here entertaining you, or you're entertaining yourself in your own mind. But really the questions are about you engaging it wherever you are. Okay, so to inspire us, because I do this because it inspires me, I like to do quotes from teachers. So this first one comes from the 37 Practices of Bodhisattvas. That text is an amazing mind training text. If you can get a hold of it and just read it. 37 practices, they're all about like 2 sentences. And just achieving one of them would get you all the way to full awakening, I have no doubt. Who wrote the 37 practices? Togme Sampo. No, Longri. Yeah, Togme Sampo. I get him mixed up with Longri Tampa, who wrote the 8 verses, but I just got it clear. These are people, I can't even imagine having the clarity to write one of these down. So you hear them, you know this person, and it was a human person practiced to a depth where they could capture this and then give it to us. So these are amazing. So here's just one from the 37 practices. All suffering. Remember I said yesterday there's a lot of all and every in Buddhism. All beings, everywhere. It's so inclusive, I love that. All suffering comes from the wish for your own happiness. Now everybody always, well, wait, don't I get to be happy? Yes, but it means if that's your only focus, suffering will continue. We kind of know that from our experience. All suffering comes from the wish for your own happiness. Perfect Buddhas, that is, awakened ones, that's where we're headed. We got that in us, we just don't know it. We don't know it every moment, but sometimes we can get a ping. Perfect Buddhas are born from the thought to help others. Sounds so simple. Just think to help others. Therefore, exchange your own happiness for the suffering of others. So that's the reference to Tonglen. Exchange your own happiness for the suffering of others. And as we worked on Tonglen yesterday, imagining taking in their suffering, giving away your happiness. This is how we soften our hearts. This is how we literally confront first the grasping at a self that doesn't exist the way we see it in our confusion. In our confusion, we perceive a self, we experience a self. We grasp at that. Does this seem like something you've experienced, or am I just talking? Okay, so we grasp at a self. That self is a hallucination. Shocking. It's shocking. But really, this is what the teachings go to, the level. The self we experience all day, grasp at, obey, follow, give our joy over to, and suffer for following it. That self is a hallucination. I can't resist telling a joke. Lama Zopa and Lama Yeshe were in Nepal and India teaching, in Nepal I think, and Dharamsala, teaching the hippie Westerners who came in the 70s, many of whom have now become our teachers, thank goodness. And other Tibetan teachers said, don't mess with them. They're crazy, these long-haired, druggy, crazy people who came from the West, you know. Don't teach them, don't teach them. It's a waste of time. But Lama Yeshe in particular was very drawn to teaching Westerners, thank goodness. And one day, one of them came to a teaching and was brave enough to ask Lama Yeshe about everyone taking drugs, and said, you know, Lama Yeshe, when I'm embellishing some of this, but it's better. I'm Irish, you have to do that. We could imagine it happen like this. You know, when I take LSD, I really get a beautiful feeling of interconnectedness, and, you know, what do you think of that? Like, I'm feeling really blissed right now, you know. And Lama Yeshe said, oh dear, he used to call everyone dear. I never met him, but I saw videos of him. And Venerable Chudren, one of my root teachers, was a very close disciple. And he'd say, oh dear, you don't have to take those drugs. We're all hallucinating all the time. And that's the reference to we are hallucinating a separate, solid self. You know, once in a while we get a sense of the impermanent, but how we know we aren't getting it is we're shocked when conditions change. Oh, that person died. That's so shocking. No. oh my gosh, I got the flu. That's shocking. The fact that we're surprised and shocked at changing things is an indication of how we don't understand this deeply. Don't beat yourself up, but it's a good measure, you know. Why are we shocked that people die? It's absolutely 100% certain. However, it's 100% uncertain when. Babies die, little kids die, teenagers die. So we just got to get more realistic. So this self-grasping sits there, and it's the teachers say an active kind of ignorance. It's not just, I don't get it. It's like, I believe in this. It's an active kind of ignorance. That's why it's hard to move out of it. That's why we have to have 84,000 practices, and Tonglen's one of them. But on top of the self-grasping, this grasping at an illusory way of being, then we pile on the self-centeredness, preferences. I want it like this. I don't want it like that. I'm mad because I didn't get this. I'm happy because I got that. Oh no, it's changing. Now I'm mad again. This is piled on top. So underneath is this active ignorance, which practices like Tonglen really confront. That's why I was saying yesterday, it's kind of like jujitsu. You think it's a jujitsu on your self-centeredness, because generally during the day, if we're honest, if we're really nice, we say, I don't do this. But if we're honest, we notice I'm pretty much centered around here. My breakfast, my drive, my car, my getting there on time, my reputation, my sore knees. Forget about yours. I mean, I like you, but really, me first. I think I'm the most important person in this room. And that's bizarre. It's just bizarre. I don't mean like, you know, in an insane way, but if you look underneath, who's going to leave? Me. I'm going to go out there, right? So I better take good care of this. So, you know, we have to get honest and really dig under and look at what's going on for us. When I first came to Buddhism, I was such a good person. I was so shocked because I was such a good person. And then began to look at who is that person and what's good about that and what's not good, and began to see on deeper and deeper levels my self-centeredness. I am a good person. Big I. Hopefully it's diminishing. I don't think so, but okay. I didn't intend to say all that, but sometimes things just come. Hope it's useful. So, question and answer time. What are you wondering? And please stay in particular about Tonglen practice or any of the basic practices rather than big topics. Great. Thank you, Cynthia. Here comes the mic.
Yeah. Last night I tried the practices like you suggested, and because I always have found Tonglen very difficult for myself, I started there again, but took your useful suggestion of not this moment of me, but an earlier.
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't go that far back, so some details were still kind of fresh. And then after I contemplated that, well, it's always difficult because it's like, well, it's like arguing both sides of the topic. It's like, I'm seeing my suffering, but I'm seeing my happiness. And so
yeah.
that's the part that I always find difficult about doing Tonglen for myself. But then what surfaced was, well, can I do it for my mother who's dead? Because she got a lot of suffering from the age of my being 5 to the age of my being 50-some, you know, and can I do Tonglen for somebody who's dead? Because it is about expanding the heart and expanding our compassion. So.
Did you do it for your mom?
No, I waited to ask you. But it seemed useful.
Yeah.
And I was thinking of it, but I wasn't actually doing it.
Yeah, it's fine. You know, consciousness goes on. Doesn't end when the body drops. Of course, she's not your mom. She's your mom when her body and consciousness are together. She's those aggregates together for however many decades. Body drops, decays, consciousness goes on. We don't know where that consciousness went, what form it took, anything, but the teachers, I've asked the same question, say, yeah, there can be some kind of, because we're so interconnected always to all consciousnesses, there can be a positive effect, even by just thinking of our friends or family who've passed on, and we say, wonder where they are right now. Hope they're having a good life. So certainly you can. See, the other answer that I have is Tonglen is not really, Tonglen is you healing your mind and heart. We can get some very interesting ideas about the effect on other, but we don't know. We hardly know the effect on ourselves. So this is really about, again, seeing our self-grasping, because it challenges it, then we see it better. It comes out of the dark ignorance into some light, and we can go, you know, and then wish ourselves well and keep practicing. So another kind of question that often comes from that is, if I do Tonglen imagining my friend who became a paraplegic from a car accident, could that happen to me? And this is all this magic kind of thinking. It's not like we're really going to get the disease or the accident from working that deeply. Because we have our own karma. We can't take their karma, put it in us. Our own karma is unfolding. Yeah, maybe enough said. But people get scared like that or get confused about what's the relationship. Well, that's a vision and imagination. But the work is here, your own mind and heart.
Thank you. You answered my second question, which wasn't the healing, maybe both ways. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have anything you want to add, Bill? Please do.
The main thing that I would point out is that something came to your mind. The example of your mother's situation came to your mind, and in it coming to your mind, there was already kind of an openness and a connection and an appreciation for the kind of experience that she might have been having, and you could connect with that experience. And in terms of training our own mind, perfect. Anything that arises in our own mind, you could say, well, whatever it is, we could be actually just imagining a kind of suffering that we don't actually know anybody personally, know a story, but we could just imagine it. And that could, whatever arises in our mind like that. Consequently, any of our own experience too, we can look at.
Thank you.
one up here.
So that reminds me that, so I want to know if I'm doing this improperly. I had a lot of resentments towards my dead husband. And so I would imagine him in front of me and taking on his suffering. So it helped me understand the past, and it helped heal me and presented me with a different attitude. Is that misuse of Tonglen?
No, that's good.
Okay.
You could also imagine yourself sitting in front of you, that one with the suffering of resentment. Do you get it? So Linda G, who's suffering from resentment, and breathe that in and give her that new view, that more calm, happy view. We don't have to get so concrete about this, like, well, how can I look at myself? And, we don't have to, you can see the confusion rise, but just taking and giving, just breathing in the suffering, giving out anything good that's happened. And then just see the effect. Don't make up the effect. It's supposed to be like this, or it should turn out like that, because that will undermine, how do I say this? It's just like in our calm abiding. We need to see what arises instead of what we wish was arising or what we think should be arising. We need to see what arises when I do that. And then right there, work with that, with the compassion. I mean, proof is in the pudding. You came to, it sounds like some kind of kinder, more open space. Good. Thanks for asking. Sonia, up here.
I felt really inspired by the teachings, and they felt so clear, and then in some way, in the moment. And then I got home. And,
yes, this does
and
happen.
all I had to do was open the door, and I just felt, I guess I'm just hearing what you're saying right now. What I noticed was an awareness, more awareness of all these difficult emotions that were unfolding.
Good. You saw them.
And in my head, I was saying, oh, this would be a good time right now to practice loving kindness. But then it just went. Then
it went. We laugh because we recognize it.
Yeah. So, but I had a question about tolerance, and how I was just confronted with my children and a really messy house and goats out and really high winds and electrical problem. I mean, just went on. And then, wow. And my mother-in-law lives with us, and I was feeling like I tolerate her, and I think that is kindness somehow.
Well, it's better than screaming at her or beating her up. Right?
Yeah, but it felt like, I don't know, just when you were talking about this kind of superficial skating across, that I felt this awareness of feeling very like tolerant of her, but it's almost like I felt underneath like this really a lot of anger towards her.
Yeah, good.
And that that in that, like you're saying, like this is all I can do right now. That's how it feels. Yeah. Like all I can do so that I'm not causing more harm is just not say anything or but I felt this underlying, like I'm not really working with that. And I feel like it is in the context of the practice we're talking about this.
Yeah.
And I also feel like that what came up with me too is that the hardest, I mean, I guess this is obvious, but that it felt very clear that the hardest relationships are the ones that are really close.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm
And
glad
those
you
were the
saw
ones that I feel like really tight. But because I tolerate, I mean, because they're around me, my husband, my children, my mother-in-law, my parents, you know, this, that maybe I'm not actually working with those.
Oh, you're working it.
Yeah.
I mean, Sonia, everything you're saying right there is working it. Working it is seeing it,
Yeah.
being honest, and then clearly notice your wish to do it better, to be kinder. That's your Buddha nature. It's right there. I wish I could do this differently. I wish I didn't hurt anyone. And then the wisdom comes in of, well, I'm just a human and I am overwhelmed. Time for me to go move the goats or
Yeah.
whatever. That's the compassion. So, see, I keep saying this, but it feels very, very important. We can't expect ourselves to be Tonglen experts in every situation. That expectation will bring more suffering. Because we'll pretend we're doing it when we're not. That builds pride. Or because we beat ourselves up because we didn't do it. That brings more suffering, of kind of a self-hate almost. Self-criticism. So you're working on it. Be happy. Be happy about what you saw. And be happy for the level you're at. In terms of, it is a kindness then to tolerate if all that's underneath. But one thing you might do is, if you want to try Tonglen, put Sonia out there with her resentment and her wish to be softer, kinder, and breathe that in. And breathe out her all your dharma, all your warm-heartedness, all your loving times that you can achieve that. And be happy that you can do that. When we take it in, it's quite helpful to imagine it either, there's a continuum of how this is described. It either smashes your self-centeredness, that's for the warrior types, it melts it away, or it just makes it disappear like a cloud. The self-centered grasping. When you breathe in someone's suffering, just that it melts that. Then you're just in that more open space with the ones who was suffering, the one who was helping. And you can start seeing possibly there's no difference, no barrier. Even if it's, even clearly when you're working with yourself. But if you're working with someone you consider an enemy, or someone from a difficult past relationship, those barriers start melting. That heads toward the less self, more selflessness, which is the core of Buddhism.
Yeah, I'll just share that is what, this morning when I came early and was sitting, that's what that's what arose for me, is to practice Tonglen for myself. In that space of not being able to.
Yeah, be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
We're just humans. We're just so human. We're so confused. We're so hurt. We're so full of yeah, frustration, everything. Be kind to ourselves. I told this story before, but it bears repeating. The first time I met Yangtze Rinpoche, who's the head of Maya Tripa College here in Portland, and if you haven't visited, I encourage you to. He came and the center hadn't been built, and we were all practicing in a house of one of his young students. He came in, and I had heard all about him, and I was like, oh, Yangtze Rinpoche is here, and came in with a couple young monastics. So we were in a dining room set up like an altar, and all he did was say hi to everyone, sit down, take refuge, and 40 minutes of meditation, which was beautiful. At the end of which, he looked up at all of us so kindly, with so much love, and it had been complete silence, and he said, "You Westerners are so hard on yourselves." Now, I felt like he was getting to know Westerners, but I felt like he was commenting on what he experienced while we meditated and relaxed. And he said it with the most love. It was not a criticism at all. It was pure love. Like, man, give yourselves a break. So it's so important we come to these practices with that compassion towards ourselves. Drop all these fancy expectations.
Yeah, I think the impulse that you kind of figured out yourself to use this as an opportunity to do Tonglen with yourself is, I think, that's the more immediate response within this practice, within this basket of practices. You obviously have had some success in developing loving kindness because you could distinguish loving kindness from resentment.
Yeah.
It seems obvious, but we do not take credit for the obvious. It's very obvious. And so in that, and we can be even, whether it's a support to view ourselves as an individual sitting opposite us, or just to go directly to that experience of resentment itself in the moment. It's already there. We've essentially taken it already. It's there. But then to alternate that with the breath, basically the breath of freedom, the breath of loving kindness, the breath of openness, and just allow that to sort of permeate all that. So it can be very, very direct and immediate. If it's helpful to use the imagination of ourself across from us, use that. If we can go directly to just the experience as it's arising, then to go there. But always to have that sense of, we may breathe in with the dark kind of burning smoke, the heat of it's already there. So we say, oh yes, there it is. And then breathing out, just to permeate our being with that, the sense of peace. Even the sense of peace that we know we don't have yet.
Yeah.
That we don't have in the moment, but to imagine that pervading all that.
Yeah, thanks. One more question, Alan.
I was thinking about something you said yesterday, which was the conveying the admonition that Lama Michael expressed about never letting anyone else know that you're doing Tonglen for them, because that builds your pride. It seemed to me that there's sort of an exception to that, which is when someone asks you to pray for them. Because by acknowledging that, it provides a certain degree of comfort to that person.
Yeah, absolutely.
As we can see is expressed in KCC's listserv. A good deal of the traffic on the listserv is people asking for prayers. Mm-hmm. And often I know from the point of being the person who has asked for prayers, it feels comforting to know that you're not alone, that other people are expressing their wishes, their compassion.
Yeah, so I get it, but you certainly, as I think everyone in here, could distinguish between that and, oh, you're sick, I'm going to do Tonglen for you. Where you know in the one, or possibly you could see in the one situation, you're just being open, loving kindness, compassionate. In the other one, you're building your ego. There's a big I who's going to, in other words, they haven't asked, would be one of the distinguishing factors. They didn't ask. And you go in being the spiritual practitioner. That's what I was pointing at. You see the difference. And I think it's really good that you're getting some clarity so people won't not.
I think I think I was trying to express that difference, although sometimes what confuses me about it is the tendency that people who are responding to the person who made the prayer request of replying to all rather than just replying to that one person who has asked.
Oh, you mean on our community list? Yeah. I've wondered about that too. So I'll just say this, it's kind of off the topic of here right now, but well, let's talk about it later. I want to stay here with Tonglen. Yeah, please do.
Just to add, and this seems obvious too, but the difference between saying to someone who's never heard of Tonglen practice, or Buddhism, maybe anything about Buddhism, to say that you're praying for them is, or whatever version of that, can be very nice thing to do. But to say, I'm doing a practice where I'm taking your suffering and I'm giving you all of my good stuff, that is where actually this practice, and Zopa referred to before, was, that this practice was kept very secret for a long time. And I think that's part of it, is the nature of this practice is easily misunderstood if people don't have days of teaching and reflection and practice to understand it. So I think that's part of it, is not just, am I praying for you, but to mention that.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, again, what the danger is rather than the practice reducing your self-grasping and self-centeredness, it could be used to increase it. Is that pretty clear, or do people still have questions about that? Because that's the core thing here. And we won't always know, because of our self-grasping, ignorant confusion, that you have to wend your way through yourself with yourself, with your own wisdom, then get help from Sangha and teachers and help from continuing to do the practice. But we can so easily become a helper. And becoming a helper has a lot of ego in it, rather than I'm equal with you. We're all suffering beings. We all want happiness. None of us know how to get it. I have the karma right now, we all do, to be here, be studying about this. The leisure, the brains, the everything. To be studying about this. Not all people have that, but that doesn't make us any better than anybody out on the street. As soon as we think we're better, Ken MacLeod said this once and it shocked me, but boy was it helpful. How did he say this? Anytime you think you're better than someone else, that's a form of self-hate. That was such a koan. I thought, what the heck? What the heck? So because it was my favorite thing to think I was better than others, and I had trained in it quite well as a lawyer, a divorce mediator, a this and a that, and a diversity trainer, and a good parent, and many identities, mostly gone now, thank goodness. But now I have to do the one of being an associate teacher. So you always get something to work on. But I pondered that, and I thought, okay, I think I'm better than someone else. Why am I doing that? And I could see just right there, it's because I actually lack confidence. So I have to be better. Because I lack confidence. Confident people don't need to be better than anybody. And confident people, confident, let's say, about your Buddha nature, okay, about your own goodness, okay. When you're confident about that, what I'm learning is I don't have to be better than anyone, and I'm not worser than anyone either. Both of those are just ego builders, all spinning around the I, while the other 7.5 billion people go ignored in my mind. Am I better? Am I worse? We're so trained in that. But anyway, so I could at least see that part of what he was saying about, why do I think I have to be better? And I'm not talking the surface better of, oh, I'm a better lawyer than someone who never went to law school, or I'm a better lawyer than that lawyer. I'm not talking about that. Skills might be there. Skills are different, okay? I don't know how to fix a car, but I know how to do this. That's just acknowledging, having confidence in those. It doesn't make me better. Everybody knows how to do something better than I do. Everybody in this room knows so much more than I do about some things. Is this making sense? This better than, worse than? And if it's not, just work with it as a koan. Why do we ever think we're better? Why do we ever think we're worse? What's that blame based on? Big I, spinning around the I, stuck in the worldly concerns of praise and blame, good and bad reputation. Praise and blame and reputation are all based on people talking and thinking. And they talk and think about everything. And their talking and thinking changes all the time. 1 minute, I really like you because you're saying something I like, and then the next minute, I really don't like you because you're saying something I don't like. So base your life on that. Good luck. That's the praise and blame and good and bad reputation that we just want to give up doing that rat race. We have no control over others' opinions. Zero. They're going to think what they think. Okay, are we ready for, let's do one thing before break, which is let's do this Guru Yoga, which I didn't list there, and then we'll do that. Just these prayers. So page 7 on your booklet, we want to call down the wisdom and kindness of the Gurus. We can see that we really need that as we work on these complex issues facing our self-centeredness in a very brave, clear way. So get a good posture, and I'll lead you through this very brief meditation. Take a few breaths. And picture your teacher, your Lama, made of light, on a beautiful lotus and moon seat, about 4 inches above the crown of your head, floating in space, radiant. The Lama smiling with a happy countenance and looking on you and all beings with transcendent compassion. Unlimited compassion. beyond the spheres of me, action, you, beyond all that. The manifestation of Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, all teachers, all yidams, all protectors. So get a sense of your teacher there. Happy to see you. You have a good, happy, peaceful connection. And with that, let's recite this prayer 3 times for the study and contemplation and meditation today. I pray for your blessing, my Lama, great and completely worthy spiritual friend. I pray that you will cause love, compassion, and bodhicitta to arise in my mind. I pray for your blessing, my Lamas, great and completely worthy spiritual friends. I pray that you will cause love, compassion, and bodhicitta to arise in my mind. I pray for your blessing, my Lamas, great and completely worthy spiritual friends. I pray that you will cause love, compassion, and bodhicitta to arise in my mind. I'm going to read one more way of approaching that one line that comes from a Guru Puja in the Gelug tradition. Venerable, compassionate Gurus, inspire me so all negativities, obscurations, and sufferings of mother beings ripen upon me right now, and I give my happiness and virtue to others, securing all wanderers in bliss. Now your Lama descends through the crown of your head and rests in your heart on a lotus and moon seed also made of light there. And from your heart, this light goes out in all directions, completely enveloping limitless beings in limitless space. Okay, let's take about 10 to 15 minute break. Remember, there's a rustic bathroom downstairs that does work, so if these 2 are filled up. Any other announcements, Linda, for the good of all?
The bookstore is open.
I think we don't want the bookstore open today. Here's the reason. A retreat's different than a class, and it'll make us busy in our minds, choosing things and finding money and all that. So let's have the bookstore shut today. It'll be open tomorrow on Sunday. Okay, thank you. Stay silent and Tonglenish.